is up, Empire? It is your girl Panda here, bringing you another episode of Striking Fury, the official podcast for your Empire Strikers. And of course, I am always joined by my favorite co-host. I can't even say that without laughing. My favorite co-host, who I have graciously let out of the doghouse today, just for today's episode. Of course, I am talking about the one, the only Christian Philly Philemon. What is going on?
Your favorite co-host, not only on pods but in life, right? Yeah, no lies. Panda almost murdered me earlier today. We may talk about that once we get Reimer on the horn. So we obviously wanted to get consistent with some of these episodes, and well, the last time we recorded one of these was a while ago, and we apologize for that. Now that Major League Soccer is over, we're going to get more consistent about this, and we'll probably figure out on the course of this broadcast what day and time that's going to be. But, you know, there's two of us. There's a podcast with three, so it only makes sense to bring in one additional party.
Of course, you are talking about Dr. Jonathan Reimer in the house. What is going up? How are you over there?
Good evening, Messieurs Philly and Panda. It is a pleasure to see you once again, albeit on the digital screens. Philly, when you are not warming the couch, it is good to have you gracing the podcast. And the elegant Panda, as always, an honor to be in your radiant presence.
Absolutely. It's so good to see you and all of our amazing viewers, listeners, however you are coming here today. And I guess that is a good time to plug it in. If you are not liking, subscribing, or following any of our social medias, our podcast, or anything, hope that you guys will do that right now. Click the like button, subscribe, so that you get all of these wonderful updates, letting everybody out there know that, of course, we are live. And you know what? Hit us up in the chat. If you're live right now, we want to see who's out there. We want to talk to you all because we have a lot of fun things for some to cover, some not so fun things for us. But I guess we'll start this out the way we always do, and just kind of like grease the wheels a little, banter a bit, and kind of get warmed up because, boy, has it been a week. It's Monday. It feels like we've already done a week's worth of work. I don't know. How are you guys feeling?
The word Monday is awfully close to the word mundane, which I have to admit is kind of how I was feeling going into today after the weekend our team had. It's been kind of rough. Although the last time we did record, we had only had 2 losses against 2 of the top teams in the game, in that of Chihuahua and Monterrey. But a little more has happened since then. I could tell you this: if somebody caught me on goals and boards earlier today, yes, it's the same day I was wearing the shirt. I'm not dirty. And I do take showers and stuff, so I changed my clothes. I just happen to be wearing the same shirt because I'm doing a second live podcast in a day. And it's in honor of my boys, the Kitties, the Gremlins, Harry, Huff, and Hagrid. So, yeah, I changed my clothes.
Thankfully, you have changed your clothes. You don't smell too awful, so I can confirm that. Yes, this is the same shirt from earlier today. I am wearing shop eat local here in the Valley or all around LA. Shout out to our boy Taco Sway, big LAFC fan, of course, and great tacos. What's going on over there, Reimer? What are you repping? What are you into?
Well, first of all, I love Tacos Way. Fun fact, I had both my 30th and my 40th birthday parties at Tacos Way. Fun fact about that.
We were there for one of those.
This is true. This is true. In the words of Knight of the Realm, Sir Bob Geldof, tell me why I don't like Mondays. No, not the greatest and most jolliest time of year for one El Doctor. This time of year is full of chaos and lots of stress and lots of work. And as such, I apologize. We have been tardy in our podcasting. Although I will say it's mostly because Panda got COVID. So sorry. Pull back the curtain.
I didn't.
Panda got
I never
COVID.
tested positive for COVID. I tested negative. I got a cold. That's what's going around.
You had Rona-like symptoms. I
had flu-like, cold-like, allergy-like symptoms. I don't know what it was. Something's going around. I mean, even in the hospital, it's running rampant. So everybody, wash your hands. You know, if you are immunocompromised, wear a mask so you avoid this, because it's been 10 days of literal just bleh. Like, I don't know how I pulled it together for Friday night's broadcast and didn't sound like a frog, to be honest. But
I don't know how the heck I haven't gotten anything. I feel fine.
I know he has
It's
not
wild.
gotten
It's
sick.
absolutely wild. I mean, both Philly and I were ready to do a podcast, but as per usual, when Philly and I are ready to do anything, broadcast, podcast, we show up in front of a microphone and then just expect everything else to work around us. And without the one elegant and amazing Miss Amanda the Panda Filament, it would just be Philly and I talking into unplugged microphones, not really knowing exactly what was happening on the other end. So without the producer McPanda skills, we were unable to put out a podcast. I'm sorry, because all Philly and I can really do is talk.
Again, my apologies. I'm feeling much better. It's still lingering, but hey, we'll get through this. We are definitely going to, and we should probably get into it since, well, I do have Philly with me today. I did not, as the notes say, I did not unalive Mr. Christian Philly Filament after earlier today, but that's okay. We're not going to get in that. It's a stressful time of year.
We had a little disagreement. I was a little boisterous. So is Panda. This is what happens when you work and live with the same person.
It's just
if Philly could just be respectful and gracious and kind to Panda,
just do everything that I say.
And if a frog had wings, it wouldn't hit its bum on the ground, right? So, I mean, we can all wish in one hand.
Line from Wayne's World. Well done.
All right, guys. Well, I'm here to keep everything just on the rails as well as I can.
You're failing miserably.
Very hard. Hey, listen, it was never on the rails to keep it on the rails. This is my time to take this train and put it on the tracks, and we're going to go full steam ahead and get into this podcast because we have a lot of fun things to talk about. And of course, we're going to open it up with pretty much a bang. Let's talk about probably the biggest news around MASL. I think some news that has been probably the biggest bit of signing news that they've had in quite some time, if not arguably ever. And I'm talking about one Marco Fabian joining the Empire Strikers on December 4th. Guys, what are your thoughts on that? I'll go to you first, Jonathan.
In the immortal words of Joey Lawrence, whoa! This blew my mind. This absolutely blew my mind. When you think about the realm of people that I was looking for the Strikers to sign this offseason, I was thinking, maybe like some USL, UPSL talent that was up and coming, someone who was kind of hanging around the mid-tier division soccer in the United States, maybe one of these big players from another team that had sort of fallen out of contract or fallen out of grace, or there was some issues with their club, cough Florida cough, that I thought maybe we'd be getting some of those players. So I was looking at some Tropics. I was looking at some other players out of contract. Never, ever in the back of my mind did I think, oh, maybe, like a two-time World Cup, Olympic gold medal guy who rocked it for some of the biggest clubs in the world, scored goals against Barca and, played for Chivas de Guadalajara for all the, yeah, sure. Let's go out and sign one of those. Great. I mean, that's something I would expect LAFC to do. That's something I would expect an MLS squad to do. The fact that the Strikers did it is whoa.
And I mean, at this point, though, within the 10 years of the Major Arena Soccer League, we've made some pretty darn big signings. I mean, think back, we had Jermaine Jones for a little while. That was a pretty big deal. And then San Diego Soccer is obviously signing Landon Donovan. You're no doubt going to put Marco Fabian into this conversation. I mean, I get it. More people would probably know of the name Landon and Jermaine just because of the U.S. national team. But
sure. How many gold medals do those guys have?
0. In fact, yes. So Marco won that in the 2012 London games with Mexico. 2 World Cups, played nearly in 200 games for Chivas de Guadalajara, scoring almost a quarter of the time, held up silverware with Eintracht Frankfurt in the Bundesliga, played in Major League Soccer, was most recently in Andorra. And I don't really know much about Andorra, but he was there for about a cup of coffee. Having him in this league is a big deal. It attracts a lot of eyes and a lot of attention. From what I heard from our social media director at the Major Arena Soccer League, our good buddy Jack, shout out to Jack. I mean, the 2 goals that that Marco scored in the 2 games, they both garnered over 100,000 views on social media. There's plenty of posts combined cumulatively within that entire social media page that doesn't equate that. So the point is, you want somebody of a big name, somebody of grandeur to get eyes and ears on the game. And here in Southern California, with such a huge Mexican population, big fans of El Tri and obviously Chivas de Guadalajara, this is a blockbuster signing for us. And quite honestly, one that's paying off really well. And we'll talk about his performance in against Baltimore and San Diego momentarily, but we are fortunate and blessed to have Marco Fabian on our team.
Yeah, no doubt. It's garnering a lot of attention, something that this league definitely needs. So this kind of benefits it in a lot of ways, you could say, not only on a performance level, but also on a social media level and just getting people interested in this game that probably have never heard of this sport, who are now going to tune in and pay attention. So, Reimer?
Not only is it new eyes on the sport, it was very public that one of the aspects of his contract stipulates that he will have the rights to an MASL franchise at the end of his playing career. Now, one has to think you have arguably one of the most famous players in the history of the city of Guadalajara. We have the announcement of Los Tequileros, and then unfortunately, it looked like the ownership backing team behind that unfortunately could not find facilities or capital or whatever it was last minute to back out. It seems like the writing is on the wall perfectly here for Marco Fabian. And let's be honest, folks, please, for the love of God, Fabian is not hard to say. Stop calling him Marco Fabian. Like, good. Come on. I know we suck at pronouncing names in the MASL, but this one, can we get this one right? It's not that hard. Anyone can say Fabian. Anyway, Marco Fabian, future owner, Los Tequileros de Guadalajara. I'm calling it right now. We'll see if it happens. But, you know my fondness for the village of Tequila and the area of Guadalajara. So I'm rooting for someone that I have some stake in to be involved in that.
Yeah, Panda just had a quick coughing fit, so that's why she got up abruptly and moved. You mentioned the fact Fabian. Obviously, we're trying to pronounce it in the correct way. It's funny, if you look at social media, there was some troll on there that was upset about the way you rolled your R's. It's like, we're trying here not to sound like one of them there white boys and trying to, do what we can to sound like professional and whatnot. So it's funny to catch any kind of heat from anybody that's, listening to us, and we're trying. So we're pronouncing the names right.
Let's be honest. All right. So I did do it wrong. Like, I did it wrong. I did it wrong during the call. And so look, it's okay. I got it wrong. I added an extra R in Gerardo Jurado, which is a hard friggin' name to do. All right.
Try saying that fast.
Yeah. You sit at home and say Gerardo Jurado 10 times fast. I challenge you to do that. All right. Sí, yo soy un gringo. Okay. I am trying the best I can to say the man's name as best I can. And look, we've had some challenging names throughout the course of our MASL career. I'm sorry, but Gerardo Jurado is up there amongst the most challenging names for me personally to try and do, because that's two different kinds of R's. Like, you Spanish speakers, you understand what I'm saying. It's the two different kinds, and it's right back to back. Like, I mean, that's a challenge, right? For a non-native speaker to try and do. And when I'm in the heat of the moment, and Marco Fabian has just scored his first goal for the Empire Strikers, look, I got it wrong. Maybe I should, like some other broadcasters, tone it back and not take the risk. But you know what? That's not us. That's not what we're about. We are risk takers. And look, sometimes the ball doesn't go out of the park. It is what it is.
Big shout out to Abraham in the chat. Said you guys are awesome at the game. I miss Pacheco, Costa, and Topete. Look, nothing hurt more. Well, you're all right? Oh, boy. Okay, Panda's got a coughing fit. Hopefully she comes back. All right, well, I guess it's me over here at the helm. Hopefully Panda comes back. Haven't heard that all day, but all right, here we are. So, yes, I too miss Pacheco. Having him score that goal against us against Baltimore sucked. Obviously, I love Johnny Topete, and, well, Costa at San Diego is a gut punch, but we're going to address that a little bit later. Marco Fabian on our team, a very big deal, Doctor. But, since we hadn't talked about the game against St. Louis, let's quickly go into what happened on our trip to St. Charles, Missouri.
Really excited to see the team get the first dub of the season. I think stemming off what we had talked about and what we saw in the first two games south of the border versus Chihuahua and Monterrey, we saw really strong first halves from the strikers in both those games. Yes, the games got way out of hand late, and the final scoreline did not respect the effort put in on the day. But throughout both of those games, we saw strong first halves. And once again, versus the Shrubs, we saw the strikers come out and take a commanding early 3-goal lead. And really, those 3 goals in the first quarter are what created the buffer that let the strikers kind of ride that out throughout the rest of the game. It put the Shrubs on the back foot right away. They were constantly fighting to try and get back in the game. That exposed them, and that gave us the ability to then pounce on them and keep the lead going. It wasn't until those 2 goals given up late in the game that really made it a nervy finish that it didn't warrant throughout the course of the play. And I think that stems from some poor second half performances that we certainly saw south of the border. It reared its head once again here, and I think we're going to be talking about that a little bit more later on tonight.
Real quick, Panda seems to be back, so I'd like to take a moment to
Sorry, it's really hard right now. I've moved into the coughing portion of this sickness, which is
lovely. I only have 3 games to broadcast this week. Don't get me sick, lady.
I mean, don't worry, you're about 10 days out from that because that's how long I've been dealing with this. So,
so just
anyways, what did I miss, guys? What did I miss?
Yeah, so we were to talk about the St. Louis game, obviously. So our first dub of the season. It's really important that we highlight that. And a couple of key fixtures. We're not going to go over every single game via the recap, but like a big shout out, Claude Dielna in his first game suiting up for the Empire Strikers gets a mammoth goal. And that was a really big tone setter because we hadn't really seen any of Claude in the first 2 games. He'd come in with somewhat of an injury, so he'd been rehabbing himself. And everything I've been told from people that competed in the TST tournament to obviously the players on the team, people were mentioning that Claude's the real deal. You look at his career historically, it's quite impressive. He's traveled around, played in Liga 1, played in Romania, played in MLS on multiple occasions. The guy is good. He's a big physical imposing force. So for him to get his first goal, awesome. Mijatovic getting a goal against a team he had once played for, another big deal. And I love to see this young man gets rewarded beautifully for the hard work he's put in coming up from Ontario Fury 2. We're talking about Alan Perez. Alan Perez, one of the few players that we had coming back from last season. We only had 6 of them. And for him to get on the boards early on was awesome. I love to see that. And, coming out 3-0, very strong start.
I mean, what I love from Dielna so far is, I mean, to me, offensively, he reminds me a lot of Johnny Thunder. I mean, there's so much topete in that just thunderous foot from beyond the line. And we've seen that a few times now. We're going to talk about it a little more in future games, but a rocket of a deep shot from this guy. Impressive. But his defensive positioning is unquestionably already the best on the team. And in my personal opinion, amongst the best in MASL already. When you see him on aerial balls, on through balls, when there's an odd man attack, his ability to find exactly the right place in the field to stop the pass, to break across from coming over, to stop a through ball from coming in overhead. I mean, he has such an intelligence for the game already very shortly into his indoor career that is impressive. And I expect huge things from Claude Dielna as the season goes on. He has been absolutely astounding so far in his performance. And without him, I don't think the Strikers win this game. His defense, I mean, Mijatovic ends up getting the majority of the blocks and ends up winning Defender of the Week based solely probably because of his performance in this game alone. But I thought Dielna really freed up a lot of space for Mijatovic to go out there and challenge the person on the ball and be able to create those blocks by stifling any kind of outlet passing. And I think a lot of credit needs to go his direction. Obviously, Steph had a phenomenal game. Golasso deserves Defender of the Week, but I think Steph's probably buying Claude dinner for the assist on this one.
No doubt. And I mean, they did come out with the win, but the ambush did not make it easy on them. And something that we have seen, unfortunately, as a trend is the second half of these games just kind of losing a little steam or just not having the ability to really adjust to the adjustments the other teams are making. What are your assessments on what's really going on in the second half with a lot of these games with the Strikers so far this season?
I mean, I think a lot of it is just that we're seeing a team. And I'm going to use this excuse just for a few more weeks. Afterwards, I'm going to throw it out the window. It's still finding that team chemistry. What the first half of this last game indicated is that there are players on this team that have a lot of individual talent. What we aren't seeing them is mesh and communicate properly, especially on some of the goals that we saw the Strikers let in the second half. Look, you have to give a massive shout out to the performance of William Eske and Robbie Cristo. Those guys had monster games. I mean, Eske himself had 4 goals, could have had 5 or 6 quite easy on us. This guy is a dynamic player and a hell of a scorer who any team would be beyond lucky to have. So it's just a matter of going through those trials and tribulations, figuring out how to communicate effectively on the back line. And what's also kept us in a lot of games and made us very fortunate to be as competitive as we are, Brandon Gomez. Brandon Gomez, from not having played indoor soccer, is racking up the stats on his saves. Obviously, the percentage and the goals allowed are going to be one thing, but he came into this weekend tied for second place in the league with saves, and he was just one shy of having the first place spot. He is turning out to be an amazing goalkeeper, and this game would have been far uglier if we didn't have this young man's performance.
A lot of games would have been a lot uglier if not for that man's performance, which we'll definitely highlight here shortly. Did you want to say anything else about this St. Louis game before we move on, Doctor?
Well, to the question that you asked at hand, which was about the first half and second half performances, right? After the USA Mexico game, we were fortunate enough to have a post-game dinner, and the three of us had dinner with Chris Toth and Nick Pereira, right? 2 guys who know a thing or two about indoor soccer. And the 2 of them have a phrase that one started and the other finished, that when it comes to an indoor game, the first half is skill and the second half is coaching, right? And that really stuck out to me. Obviously, we're talking about 2 very intelligent minds, and when they both sort of start and finish a sentence around a phrase like that, that means the both of them are bought into it. And that just says to me that Wright just hasn't had enough time yet with these guys. I mean, this team really hasn't come completely together until like 10 days ago, 14 days ago, maybe. I mean, these guys have had a handful of training sessions together and have had to play 4 or 5, games around that. It's going to take some time for this team to come together. It's a project right now. And what we're seeing in the first half is the raw skill this team has assembled. And throughout the course of the first halves, we've been fairly dominant. But in the second halves, we're starting to see other teams figure out what we're doing. And our players just aren't familiar enough with the indoor game yet to make those kind of adjustments. And this is where it is on a rookie coach, a lot of responsibility to figure this out.
No, I 100% agree. And it's a very, very good point. One last thing I want to say about the St. Louis game is big shout out to Abdul Mansouré getting the game winner. Had he not scored that goal, we're looking at overtime. So Abdul Mansouré putting us ahead, game-winning goal, big-time goal, and it's nice to see him have some success. He's already got 3 goals in the first 5 games of the season. He's coming out impressive. He's still fast as I could remember. I don't know if it's even possible to think that he's gotten faster, but he helped us win this game, and, well, our first dub of the season. Sadly, it's still our only dub of the season, but more on that momentarily.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it got spoiled, but we had some news, didn't we?
We did. I was getting ready to say before we get into our home opener, which is going to be an exciting game to kind of cover. Let's talk real quick about some of the rights that we acquired and some players that we are going to unfortunately be missing out on the turf. Do you want to take that?
Yes, I'll talk about the rights acquired. So we were announced that we have the rights now to William Vanzella and Max Ferdinand. As to whether or not they are going to play for the Empire Strikers, well, we have yet to determine and yet to see that. For those of you who follow William Vanzella's career, obviously he's got a goalkeeping academy. He works with Johns Hopkins University. He's got a life and a busy thing going. Back in 2021, he did play for the San Diego Sockers, and he would take some time and travel over to California, play some games, go back, so on and so forth. As to what the arrangements are for that, I have no idea what the case is. And we're still waiting to hear what the story is going to be with Max Ferdinand. But as of right now, they are no longer members of the Baltimore Blast, and the Empire Strikers hold their rights for now.
To me, this feels like there's something else that's gonna happen after. It feels like one of those moves when the team doesn't make a big announcement after the fact. It feels like there's another domino that we just don't know about yet, right? And we don't know anything, certainly, right? So, I mean, we're just sort of speculating. But, when it comes to someone like Mancella, that's a person that I think could do wonders, even if it's just in helping coach and go through film with someone like Brandon Gomez, who has so much raw talent, but obviously could use some coaching on the indoor game. Even if this comes to that and nothing more, I would be excited. But if it ends up being something like he did in the past with the Sockers, where he flies out and participates in some big games and trainings and, is maybe able to help the team in any facet, I think that's great. When it comes to Ferdinand, unless he looks on relocating his life to the Empire, I don't really see a whole lot there. That might just be a sign and trade, but that's just my own speculation. The other big sort of news to drop, and unfortunately this is going to happen when you have signings and you have big players coming in and you're looking at a depth chart and you've got 3 complete lines. Some of these players that have been hanging around from the Jets and are sort of on the outskirts of the team, you're going to have some cuts this time of year that cut a little deeper. And Hugo Magana Jr. unfortunately got released from the team after the game versus St. Louis. And that's a guy who personally we've all had a chance to know and work with and have really, really high regard for the human being underneath the player. And I think we know that human being is going to amount to some really awesome things in the future. It's just a bummer that in this current roster crunch, it didn't work out for Hugo and he got cut. But best of luck to the young man. I hope he hangs around the franchise and gets his another shot next season.
19 games over the course of the last 2 years, 3 assists, but a big-time contributor. I mean, while you might have not seen him get the goals and the accolades at the likes of a Frank Taillou and a Justin Stinson, one thing you could always count on is seeing Hugo Magana at player appearances, going out there and doing the camps, going to the charity events. Hugo Magana and Alan Perez, for that matter, and Jerry Caceres, these kids were always there at events. And same with Nestor and Johnny Topete. So there's something to be said about that. From what I was told, Hugo is going to still be working with and around the club. And I hope he gets another opportunity to play because he's a great kid. He's got a lot of talent. UC Riverside product. So I'd like to see him back on the turf. But we just couldn't go throughout this pod without giving him a shout out. And he's, like me, a sucker for punishment, a fellow Jets fan. So I have nobody to commiserate with when it comes to the NFL. So another beloved, Hugo.
All right. Well, we kind of went over our acquisitions and departures. So let's move into a date that I know we all had circled on our calendar for quite some time now, and that would have been December 15th. That was going to be our home opener. We could not wait. I don't know how long you guys have been looking forward to being back in Toyota Arena, but I know I have been looking for it. I think we departed from it far sooner than we thought we were going to or hoped we would have. So it was really nice to finally know that we were going to be back in Toyota Arena on December 15th.
What's crazy about that, you bring up a good point. So 259 days before we got the call against Baltimore, we were at the game at Toyota Arena calling it. It was against Tacoma. We lost. I think it was 7-6, the final score. And I didn't think our season was done. I really thought we would go down in Mesquite, pull out a victory, and have another shot at calling another game and another game in the playoffs. To our surprise, the team absolutely got decimated by the Outlaws. And that obviously that killed our season. And I'm glad I didn't do what I was thinking of doing. I was thinking about leaving like a bag there with some of my equipment so I wouldn't have to worry about lugging it back and forth from Burbank to Ontario. I'm glad I didn't, but
it would have been dusty.
It would have been it would have been gone is what it would have been. But, we had a little taste calling those 2 games in September, both USA-Mexico games, the women and the men's game. And after spending an entire season doing outdoor soccer, doing podcasts for and with LAFC, calling games in the WPSL, calling games for Riverside men and women's soccer, I love calling outdoor. It's just so much fun. I get to be with you. I get to
You
be
love
with you.
calling outdoor?
I'm sorry, indoor. Jesus Christ. It's
I
late
was
at night,
like,
folks. Leave me alone.
I don't think that's
I
what you
love
meant.
calling indoor. I mean, it's just so much fun. There's so much going on, and we've been around the league long enough. We know a lot of the players well enough to not have to worry about doing all of that research. And yeah, certainly looking forward to it. I didn't know what I was going to wear. I didn't know how I was going to do my hair. These are all things I actually enjoy doing because this is the time I get to, let my freak flag show. I get to have some fun with all this, which is why I am now the platinum-haired flamingo.
I would say, calling outdoor games with you, which we had the privilege of doing this particular off season, it's astounding how slow the broadcast is during an outdoor game versus an indoor game. And you don't realize it until you're on the microphone, like in an indoor game, and the pace is so frenetic. And then in the outdoor game, and it's so calm. And it's like the goal happens, and it's like, I can take 3-4 breaths, think about what I'm going to say, then talk about it. Like there's so much more time between everything. And the whole time I was thinking, like, can we please get back inside Toyota Arena? I just want to call an MASL game. This is so boring to be on the microphone for. I love watching the outdoor game, but it is very, very different to call one of those games. So I was super excited to get back in the stadium. Marco Fabian is here. We got all this press. I mean, we had to like kick press members out of the broadcast booth because there were so many press people there. They didn't know where to sit, and they were like coming in and trying to like take a pair of cans and jump in the call. And we had to like kick people out of the press room because we're not used to dealing with these kind of, numbers of people inside the arena. There were so many fans that were there for the first time. We had so many fans in the chat that were there for the first time that kept asking, Q Cardi, what's going on? Great that you're tuning in. We had so many fans in the chat that were there for the first time that were asking basic questions about rules and blue cards and what is this hockey soccer combination thingy that we're watching, and why is Marco Fabian here? And I mean, there was so much around that game. And I know, it's in the midst of the holiday season, so my life is crazy outside of it. So, I mean, I was so excited to have a day where I didn't have to do anything but indoor soccer, that for our 7 p.m. call, I arrived at the stadium at 11:45 in the morning. I left hair and got straight to the stadium and was there over 7 hours, almost 8 hours before kickoff. Got to hang out with I was the first one in the stadium. Security was there and Doc, and that was it. I got to greet Jeff because Jeff's always the first one there, and I beat Jeff there, which means I got there way too early. I got to watch Jeff do his whole, and people don't even know this, but the first employee of the Empire Strikers to arrive at the stadium on game day is Jeff Burham. And the first thing Jeff does is he goes out and he walks the entire pitch end to end, picks up every single piece of trash on the field, checks every corner, checks every tape, has them come out and fix things. And to be able to see that whole thing and watch the whole pageantry of game day is something I've missed so much over the last 8-10 months.
Yeah, no doubt. It was so nice to be back. It was good to see you, of course, because we don't see you very often. It's so weird, even though we're in the stadium for LAFC, we don't see you enough. So it was so good to walk in and see you and see all the front office staff and the people that work the gates just to let us in. It just feels like home. And it was certainly very, very good to be home and watch a game. So let's just get into it. Let's start talking about this game. Of course, it was the Empire Strikers hosting the Baltimore Blast. And when's the last time the Blast came to Toyota Arena? Do you know?
The year prior.
Did they play last year?
We played them last season. I do remember this very distinctly because, well, we walked in and Mike Zierhofer was like striking fury. And I distinctly remember Tony Donatelli punching him and going, dude, just walk. I remember that. But yeah, we split the series last year with the Blast. We lost to them in Baltimore.
That's
and we beat them. If you recall, one of my favorite games ever, that was the overtime game which Justin Stinson scored the game winner. That's why I'll never forget that game.
Oh, it's one of my favorite Philly calls, by the way.
Thank you.
The Stinger game winner, game over is like, that's probably my favorite moment you and I have had in the booth together.
Yeah, it was a darn good time. And look, these are two teams going through transitionary periods. Baltimore Blast, the reigning defending Eastern Conference champions, had a phenomenal game one against the Chihuahua Savage, but barely lost that one. and they succumbed in game 2. The score was a lot closer statistically and on the score sheet than it actually was. You had a lot of late goals scored by the Baltimore Blast. In reality, it was Chihuahua's game, but with the crazy offseason that Baltimore had, Lucas Roque coming to Empire, William Vanzella and Max Ferdinand no longer there, Nelson Santana no longer there, Vinny Dantas no longer there. I mean, you had a team that's been together for a while. And in the 10 years of the Major Arena Soccer League, historically, Baltimore's got 10 titles. But in this modern MASL era, which now hits 10 years, they've won back-to-back-to-back, and they've been in 2 finals. The very first MASL final against the Monterey Flash, they lost that. This most previous one against the Chihuahua Savage. And then they went down to Mexico within the 3-peat and beat Sonora and Monterey. This is an elite franchise. And so for them to come into our house 0-2, having lost in the friendly confines of Townsend State University at Sequio Arena, wild. So with a young team versus an experienced team, but one in a chaotic flux, I really did think we were going to come out victorious that game, especially with Fabian's first game.
I just felt the buzz was with us. The zeitgeist was with us.
That was the tequila, by the way, the buzz.
You're right. I mean, look, Baltimore lost 2 games at home all of last season. They've already lost 2 games at home this season. They had a tumultuous offseason. I expected that to roll over into this game versus the Strikers. And sadly, it didn't play out that way. The very, very strong first halves that the Strikers had shown throughout the course of this season early on just sadly did not manifest themselves. Whether that's tactics, whether that's coaching, whether that's the player personnel, whether that was Baltimore adjusting to what they'd seen on film at this point in time. There wasn't that much film out there on Baltimore, especially in those small arenas. So, and look, it was a difficult first half for us. We come 1-1 at the end of the first quarter. We had an absolute golazo from Dielna that was, just a bomb from deep, beautiful to see. But we get to halftime. And Baltimore's got the 1-goal lead, right? And as strong as Empire has been in the first half, and as much as we've struggled in the second half, it was certainly not a good sign in the home opener to be down at halftime.
No, and one thing I want to just publicly apologize for, I do a ton of research. Reimer does a ton of research. Panda does a ton of research. It's inexcusable to pronounce a player's name incorrectly. And what gutted me, mainly because of an optics perspective, those numbers were very hard to see, whether you were close to the turf or the boards or up in the broadcast booth. So I apologize to Jairo Guevara, the rookie who scored to start things off within the third quarter. Here's a young man that came from their second side. Arsenal, I believe, is what the Blast call their M2 side. So he comes in and gets to score in his first game, having been announced less than a week prior. So I wanted to make sure that he got the accolades that he deserved. He scored things and obviously put his team up, doubling the lead. And, we were playing from behind the entire time. Interestingly enough, not a single power play goal, Doctor, up until a very popular goal that's, from what I've been told, has already had 100,000 hits on social media.
Look, you're not wrong about the uniforms. And look, Philly and I know that we were not ready for that. No one had seen Baltimore's away kits yet, right? It hadn't been released publicly. We hadn't seen any pictures of the back of the kits. We had no idea what to expect. So we had no idea what the kits were going to look like. Baltimore is required to have their roster due to us an hour before the game. That doesn't really give us a whole lot of time to change what we have prepared and have researched for the weeks prior. So when numbers and players and availability and who makes the trip and who didn't make the trip and who just got signed, and you're finding this out 30 minutes before we go live, maybe 20 minutes before we record a pregame, it's very difficult to respond to roster changes with 20 minutes of notice, especially when we had no clue what kits they're going to wear. It's not like they warm up. They warm up wearing something else. So until they take the field for the national anthem, the broadcast is already live. This was our first chance to see these jerseys this year. And so it threw us. It threw us. And it's something that midseason us probably would have responded better to. But first game of the season, first broadcast of the season, to be thrown all of that at the same time was really kind of a rude move from the folks in Baltimore. Let's be honest.
Look, I'll let him slide off the hook at that point. Like, I kind of got thrown off during the warm-ups because I saw the number 7 running up and down the turf, and well, it's Victor Pereira, newly signed from the Florida Tropics, wearing that number, but he didn't make the trip. So there were a couple of confusing things, but the nice thing about having called games in this league is we do recognize a great deal of these players. So a lot of their names and numbers are committed to memory. And a player that I also wanted to give a big shout out to, approaching 300 points, was Tony Donatelli. We didn't allow him that honor. It was Tacoma that would allow him that honor a couple days afterwards. But, coming out, we talked about the power play situation for the Empire Strikers. We'd seen him. He started. And, of course, I'm talking about Marco Fabian, Doctor. He had his first practice with the team. I believe it was either Tuesday or Wednesday of the week of the game. And from what I was told, Marco came in, obviously not having played any kind of indoor soccer since he was 15 years old. But from what Paul had mentioned, he said, and you were listening from the other room, that after practice, he left as if he'd been playing this game for a long time. And what he did for us that we didn't have all season long was a stinking power play goal. We've been pretty darn good on the penalty kill, but Marco Fabian opens his scoring account with a power play goal. The goal heard round the world, drawing us near. It was Jurado with the assist, and it was great. I got so excited during my call. I practically said like an Ave Maria. I'm like, Maria, Marco.
Overwhelmed I was seeing Marco Fabian score his first ever indoor goal for the Strikers. The gravity of that moment, the weight of it. And I honestly, and I think everyone in the arena, the Blast defense included, thought for sure that Jurado was going to take that shot. I mean, he winded up like he's taking the shot and then just lays off the perfect dime for Fabian to slot it in bottom left corner there. I mean, it was a perfect strike from Fabian. Not maybe the most golazo of golazos. He would certainly find one of those in the next game, but it just like, it seemed like it was Jurado's goal. And then he just laid it off last minute. Fabian put it, and I think all of us were caught off guard by the fact that Fabian had just scored his first indoor goal, and what a glorious moment that is.
I can tell you being down on the turf during all these games, of course, because I'm usually down in the penalty box, not because I did anything wrong, but because that's just easier to get out onto the turf when I need to. And you could just feel the crowd wanting him to score. It was so palpable. It was so easy to feel every time he had the ball. I mean, you could just see, people had their phones out. Everyone was ready to record like that first goal that he got. And the second that it happened, the crowd was just electric. They were just so into it. It certainly woke them up because at that point, we definitely needed that. We had already gone down 4-2 at that point. So him pulling one back and getting us, within one goal of tying it up, just really, really, really did give the energy that we needed in that crowd, because they were getting a little flat there for a moment, and it was time, and it came at the perfect moment. However, that was going to be short-lived as far as moments go, because we are going to get a peppering of goals from the Blast. That's really just going to take the air out of the tires in the fourth. We're going to see Moises Gonzalez, Patrick Thompson, and then of course Sweet Pea himself is going to come through and get a goal, a power play goal at that. I know we talked about us killing the power play. Unfortunately, we were not going to be able to do that with Sweet Pea himself, and we are going to find ourselves down 7-3 pretty quickly on in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, no, it wasn't a great fourth quarter, and that just goes back to what we were talking about. The team in segments and in bits and pieces is great. We imploded upon ourselves within the fourth quarter. Moy Gonzalez, a veteran of this league, statistically, you look at his numbers, they're utterly impressive. But he hadn't really gotten on too much within the first 2 games of the season. He opens up his scoring account and ended up finishing as the player of the game with 1 goal and 2 assists. But the other thing I want to mention, Patrick Thompson. You thought Dielna had a golazo? Man, Patrick Thompson's goal was gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. I can't wait for Alex Bostjuvanski's goals of the week. But yeah, you said it. When Pacheco scored, that took the wind right out of our sails.
I think we discovered it's MASL Media 6's player of the weeks. Who was it in the chat? Was it 6 or 2?
I don't know. I know who it is. I can't out them. I will not out
Yeah.
them. We could say it off camera, but I keep thinking it's Alex Bastruvansky. And then I always
We know
think,
it's not Alex. It's not.
Yeah, all right. Well, I got to keep being reminded. But Pacheco scoring took the wind out of our sails. It was great to see Mijatovic scoring in a second straight game. And then Mo Guy getting the final goal of the game. But the cool part about both of those goals were they came by way of Marco Fabian. So in his first game as a member of the Empire Strikers and his first game in the Major Arena Soccer League, his first game playing indoor soccer, 2 assists, 1 goal. I know a lot of people are thinking, oh, great, what are you doing bringing another outdoor guy here? Like, we've seen how this works out. Yeah, we have. But history doesn't have to repeat itself. And sometimes the past isn't going to necessarily squeak its way into the future. I would say he had a very solid game, and there are plenty of times you'd see him and he'd go, well, I don't know what that is. I don't know what happened there. There are moments where you think, crap, he's learning this as he's going along. But 1 goal and 2 assists in his first ever outing, I would say mission accomplished for him in his debut.
He was involved in 60% of the goals for the Empire Strikers in his debut, in his first time ever playing in this sport professionally. 60% of the goals we scored went through Marco Fabian. He'll be just fine. Calmate, amigos. Marco Fabian is going to be fine.
Yep.
Absolutely. And I got to interview him at the end of the game, and he just said how happy he was to be here. And obviously, disappointed about the result and just looking forward to getting better, learning the game, the rules, and just the tactics at the end of the day, and just evolving and becoming a better player. But he also said, I'm really tired. So I'm sure that was a little bit of a different game when it comes to physicality than he might be used to. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how he does develop, because if he's this good in game 1, I can't wait to see what he looks like in game 10, 11, 12 down the road. So either way, we did end up losing this game. Spoiler alert, 7-5. Do you guys have any thoughts that you guys can wrap up each in about 30 seconds?
Defense needs to, be in sync with each other. Again, that's just a matter of experience. The passing wasn't great. And one thing that I think we should have really taken advantage of Baltimore with is, younger, faster, fresher guys. Baltimore had just come off of a flight. Baltimore, the veteran team, the older team, we should have ran some circles around them. But sometimes youth and speed gets conquered by intelligence and veteranship. And that's exactly what happened. We enabled Baltimore to get their first win of the season. And for them, it came at a pretty good time because most people aren't accustomed to seeing Baltimore not win. So they did so at our expense. We could do better.
That was longer than 30 seconds.
Oh, shoot. I didn't realize I was done.
said 30 seconds. I mean, I'm trying to wrap this up. Keep it on the rails. If not, you will talk forever. We do know you.
Now you know I almost died. Clearly, I can't listen to my
Doctor, any last thoughts that you have about this game that you would like to let everybody know?
Team's green. Team's very green. This is where we need to rely on our veterans. I'm looking at Cisse. I'm looking at Mijatovic. I'm looking at Stinson. I'm looking at the guys who know this game inside and out, that have lived this game for multiple seasons here, to help the rest of this team get caught up. You've got a coach who hasn't been involved in the indoor game in a long time. You've got a lot of players that have never been involved professionally in the indoor game making their debut. The players who know this game inside and out, the Chuy Molinas on the coaching staff of the world that have lived and breathed this league week in and week out, need to help the rest of these guys get caught up, and they need to get caught up a little quicker than what we've seen so far. It's to be expected. It's the first month into the career for some of these guys, but we're starting to feel that a little bit, and hopefully this winter break gives them a chance to catch up. But speaking of teams we faced that were on short rest and had dealt with some travel, not 48 hours after Baltimore, we head on the road down to sunny San Diego.
Yeah, we're going to get into this game now. And boy, 48 hours is quick turnaround for anybody, but San Diego had a little bit quicker of a turnaround for this game, which you would have thought we could have used that a little bit to our advantage and, maybe outworked a somewhat tired San Diego squad. But as we have just kind of preached to you, the whole work smarter, not harder ideology that we need to adapt to, they were going to show us how they did work smarter than we did, no matter how hard we were. So let's get into this game where our boys traveled down to San Diego to take on the Sockers in Pechanga Arena. Would you like to start us off, Philly?
The first of what, 6 matches between us and San Diego, a team that we're going to become very intimately familiar with yet again. I think calling San Diego games is probably the easiest thing next to Tacoma for all of us because, well, we've seen San Diego so many times. This is a team that is still deadly and a team that restocked. You bring in the likes of Gabriel Costa. You bring in the likes of Drew Ruggles. I mean, they only got better in the offseason, but they'd come in 4 hours prior to kickoff from Dallas. And not even Dallas. Craig Elston alluded to it on the broadcast. I mean, they were down in Allen, which is an hour and change from Dallas. They just played a spirited effort against the Sidekicks, an 8-7 game. Tavoy Morgan with the game winner. You figure they'd be tired. No rest, no sleep, not that much time to rehabilitate. Coming in against an Empire Strikers team that, well, for the most part, is younger with the exception of 2 or 3 players, and at least rested with 24 hours. And for the first quarter, we were very, very much in the game.
I mean, I think Brandon Gomez kept us very much in the game. I don't think the Strikers looked all that potent in the first half. The fact that we netted a whopping 0 goals in the first half speaks to said potency. We were being peppered throughout the entire first quarter. And were it not for the acrobatic, dynamic heroics of one Brandon Gomez, this score would have gotten laughable before this game ever got interesting. He kept us in the game in the first quarter. We mounted absolutely nothing offensively. It was a terrible start to the game from a Strikers team that should have had every reason to be attacking at the very throat of this San Diego team, beleaguered, having just gotten off of a 4-hour flight and come straight to the stadium. Look, this speaks to the fact that San Diego has amassed an impressive roster. They are not only 3 lines deep, they have 3 lines of perennial MASL all-stars. They have spared no expense in putting together what is one of the most intimidating rosters ever accumulated in this sport based on proven talent. What the Strikers have done is gone out and acquire unproven talent in this league that has proven itself on a much bigger stage. It's going to take some time for them to get together, and unfortunately, it did not come together by this first half. And as strong as the Strikers have been in first halves, you would have expected them to have come out and been able to dominate a first half versus a team that just got off of a 4-hour plane flight. But instead, at halftime, we're looking up at a 3-0 scoreline, and all of us were saying, oh, Lord, please don't let this get ugly.
No, you said, yeah, Brandon Gomez stood on his head. And we were very fortunate that for the first quarter, the shooting accuracy of the San Diego Sockers was kept at baggage claim. But they quickly found that within the second quarter, and it starts with who else? The man who didn't travel to Dallas, the captain, Mr. San Diego, one of the most imposing scorers and players in the history of indoor soccer, Captain Craig Childs. The minute there was the opportunity for that penalty kick, you knew it was going to happen. You knew it was going to happen. Craig Childs is money when it comes to that moment.
Can we talk about what led up to that penalty kick, please?
Yeah, go for it.
So, of course, the game's going, and there's a lot of bouncing around happening in the box, balls flying everywhere. Take that how you want.
Ew.
And all of a sudden, you see Phil Savaggio throw the red flag, and you're like, oh. I mean, clearly he saw something, which I don't know how you could see anything because everything looked like chaos until you saw the replay again. And it was like, oh, it was probably the easiest handball I think I've ever seen. Very easy to call. If you didn't see it, it was one Stefan Mijatovic on the ground. And, sometimes you just do things because, well, you know it's probably going to go in. I mean, this reminds me of Chiellini. Whenever there was a ball that went over his head, and he probably just knew at that moment if it went past him that it might be a scoring opportunity. So why not risk it all and just swat at it like you're playing in a volleyball game? And it's exactly what Mijatovic did on the ground, hand up, bounced off of him, and clear as day handball, of course. And I don't know if it was just a reaction or I don't. It did look like it would have been on target, absolutely. But the way Brandon Gomez was playing, I think I would have trusted that he could have gotten that. I don't know. But either way, it didn't matter in the end of the day because Craig Childs was going to step up. He was going to take that penalty kick. And unfortunately, the attempted kick save that Brandon Gomez had trying to save that was not successful. And we are going to see the Sockers go up by a goal. Oh, and then we're also on like a weird power play situation. Like we were like on a power play for 4 minutes at that point in this game. If I am remembering correctly.
We are on a power play when Mijatovic commits the incredibly flagrant foul. The ball to me looks like it's heading straight for Gomez. The deflection off his hand actually made it more difficult to save. It looked like it was a very easy save. I don't understand what Mijatovic is doing. It's his hand is already away from his body, and then he stretches it out into the most obvious fashion. Like it's always going to get called. You're giving up a higher percentage shot by doing that, plus putting your team on another 2-minute power play. It is not a smart decision from a player who is the veteran savvy that is supposed to be smarter than this, right? This is the reigning defender of the week at this moment. That is not a defender of the week type decision or execution. And that was disappointing.
Sometimes you just do silly stuff. Sometimes in the moment, like I brought up Chiellini. Every time I see that, it makes me laugh because it's so blatant.
Right, but that was
obvious.
5 yards inside mid-pitch in an outdoor game. It was not in the box, right? This was in the box.
Look. At that point, it's one of those you pull out like your Scooby-Doo ending bad guy moments where it's just like, and I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for your damn camera angles and your VARs. I mean, he almost did get away with it because nobody had saw it other than the people on that angle. And from what we've seen in some MASL broadcasts throughout our tenure in this league, they were lucky to have that camera angle because if they didn't, that wouldn't have happened. That wouldn't have happened. And we know there's some arenas that wouldn't have had that capability. So yeah,
look, we're waxing philosophical about one goal in a first half. We lost 3-0.
No,
that one goal is
matter.
Irrelevant. If the game ends 6-3, it's no different.
Yeah, but obviously, again, we talk about the tone.
Well, what does bring this up is the fact that he did waste a challenge on this, and there are moments later in this game that we will talk about where maybe, if it hadn't happened, then it could have. Things could change, and maybe we'll talk about this at the end of this, some red flag challenge things that I want to get into. But either way, they had to throw it early. It did pay off for them in this one time. And so, lucky for them then that it did, it all worked out. So let's keep going forward with things that you think are relevant to this game at this point, other than soccer scoring.
It was awesome seeing Justin Stinson open up the scoring in the third quarter. We were on the couch, and I had my fist pump in the air going, yes, Justin Stinson getting himself some goals. I love to see that. Yeah.
Well, before you go forward, we have to talk about the whole build up to Stinson's goal, how it was the broadcaster's curse.
Oh, yeah.
How they were talking about Stinson for like a good minute and how, he's their leader and he's been, really dry on the scoring line and we haven't seen him. And then all of a sudden,
were they talking up Stinson or were they saying that he needs to step up more?
That's what I think.
My understanding of what Craig was saying was him calling out Stinson, that he was more giving him a ribbing for not having been a more dominant player this season.
That's exactly what I'm saying is right. What he was saying is how he was saying he's the leader on this team. We haven't seen much from him. We need to see more from him. And in that moment, he's like, oh, okay, and scored. And he actually posted that on his story, which was kind of funny. And it said, I think it said, "Say more" as the
Yeah.
caption.
No, it was great. I'm glad that he put that up there. And Justin Stinson scoring a goal thought was going to be exactly what we needed, shifting the momentum. All right, Empire's going to start doing some things. They're gassing out the Sockers. The jet lag's going to hit. The lack of sleep, the only coming in 4 hours prior to kickoff is going to hit. And then 5 seconds later, the Sockers strike again. And every time that we had some kind of a response, they had an even bigger answer to our movements.
And it was like literally always within 30 seconds.
Yeah, this
And
time it
it
was within
was-
5.
Well, that was
It
5.
was so obviously that our team took their attention off the game. I mean, every time we scored a goal or every time there was a rough decision against us, we saw two quick start goals in this game. 1 is unacceptable. 2 is beyond reproach. I'm sorry. That cannot happen in an MASL game twice. You can get bit once and it is embarrassing enough. To have that happen twice is humiliation. And for that to happen against your rivals is completely unacceptable. Like, I'm sorry, but this entire team needs to be drilled in a locker room against a wall and then drilled on the turf to not let that happen again, because those types of moments are an embarrassment. And that happened twice in this game. And both times in quick response to our goals, both times after we went ahead and we clearly took our attention, our focus, and our purpose out of the game. And those are the moments at the end of this night, not the fantastic saves from Gomez, not the golazo from Fabian, not the great play that we had in flashes of this game that stood out to me. Those 2 moments stood out as such a black eye on this game, that it's moments like that that have been so frustrating throughout the beginning of the season, because that is indoor 101 stuff, and it's really difficult to see.
Well, I mean, yes, there's a lot of indoor 101 moments we missed. I mean, at one point they had too many men on the field. That obviously was an indoor 101. What? Everybody keeps interrupting me. I can't talk.
Well, no, it's just funny. You said at one point they had too many men on the field, and at one point they had almost no one on the field.
Yeah, no, that's all very good points. All very good points. Yeah, you mentioned Fabian. He gets himself his second goal in his second game. Marco Fabian finishes 2 games with 4 points. I'd say that's pretty darn good. 2 goals, 2 assists. Justin Stinson gets himself 1, but to me, the kick in the I don't know, you tell me what body part you want me to refer to, was Cesar Cerda's shorthanded goal. We're starting to operate. We're starting to collect power play goals. Our second consecutive game in which we've had power play goals. Prior to that, we had none. And so, again, with the momentum shifting in a way that you would feel comfortable with things. Sure, Charlie Gonzalez would score, but 5-3 at that point, no problem. But the shorthanded goal to kind of close out the third by Cerda, at that point, it was like, this game is done, man. Like, this team looks more gassed than the team that just got off a plane 4 hours ago. It was just demoralizing. You want to talk about embarrassing? To me, whether it's indoor soccer or hockey, there's nothing worse or more embarrassing than a shorthand goal.
I mean, on our power play, we had 3 power plays and our goal differential was 0 on those 3 power plays. We scored 1, we gave up 1 in 3 power plays. Net goal differential is 0. Unacceptable.
Yeah, anytime I travel, it doesn't matter where I come from. It's like the second I land, I cannot be bothered well enough play 2 hours of indoor soccer. So that just shows you, like I said, a testament to this team. Like you said, their depth. I mean, they did have Craig Childs, who did not make the trip, so he did have some fresh legs there in that veteran leadership as well. So I know that probably helped them immensely. But they're just a good team all the way around. They're smart. And clearly they're athletic, and unfortunately they just outplayed us. And, the moments we scored, I think we were just so happy and so excited about it because, well, we haven't been doing it enough. We need to be able to score goals so that it doesn't feel like an excitement and then lose focus, unfortunately.
The final score is 7-3.
Yeah.
You take out the 2 quick restart goals, it's 5-3. You take out the shorthanded goal, now it's 4-3. You figure
out
out
the penalty
on now it's 3-3, right? I mean, so these little moments that we're talking about, those are literally the difference between a 3-3 game and a 7-3 game.
Absolutely. And I before we move on to something else, there were some very interesting things that happened in this game that Ryan Sikic is going to probably have to address on his show Under Review. And
We know they are. Phil already said so.
and if you have, how would I know?
Oh, you didn't watch Goals and Boards? Your husband was only on it earlier today. I made the reference to wearing this cat shirt.
Look,
earlier because-
anytime you play San Diego in San Diego, you're not getting the calls. There's going to be wonky calls. The calls are going to go against you. That's part of playing in San Diego against San Diego. You've got to be a better team than that. But these calls were all over the map today.
Yeah, I was going to say, they kind of went both ways. We did have, so there was the one, so we'll talk about one of them that was a little controversial, at least from the broadcaster's point of view. However, I do feel like upon review, I think it was the right call. I have no problem with it, and I think that it will stand. But
the Adam James
they were very adamant that was not
adamant.
Yeah, they were very adamant that it was a foul on Costa. When I think, watching it over and over again, I think Adam James had just a really good tackle, all ball. Costa was already kind of slipping, tripping, and falling, and the ball got caught under his feet in that tackle, and he fell, and that's it. And we were able to capitalize on that turnover and create that scoring opportunity. And woo, were they livid? Oh my goodness!
And no challenge. You referred to it, and no challenge flag because of what happened prior. So one way or another, it was clear that San Diego was going to get something out of it, and well, they ended up getting something out of something. We score.
Yeah,
and then
I don't know. What you hear and what you see on a San Diego broadcast are not always the same thing when it comes to officiating. Let's be honest. But it was
one
wild
thing we
game.
can agree with more than likely. I mean, let's transition from like that Adam James to the one that's going to be on Under Review, the blue card on Fabian.
Which is laughable.
That was wild. I mean, he by no means was looking to do anything gregarious. Maybe the game was getting chippy at that point, but he had no part really in that play. I think ultimately, like, he just put his leg up to stop the momentum of him moving or maybe crashing into Tavoy or falling over. But the funny part about it is, like, a little bit of a toe poke. Tavoy falls down, and then that's when the blue card comes through. I mean,
how is that not flopping?
Tavoy baited the hell out of Fabian on that.
Look, I mean, Tavoy Morgan is not winning any Sportsman of the Year awards, right? I mean, even Elston on the broadcast talked about all the dust-ups that he and Jurado had last year and how he's not the most beloved person in a locker room. The man plays with a fire and intensity that you love and expect from it was on the broadcast.
The man was the most loved in the locker room. Really? I didn't hear that. I heard the thing about Jurado, but I didn't think.
Anyway, right, whatever. Let's move on the rails.
Yeah.
Either way, I mean, the guy plays with a fire and intensity that you have to love and admire and appreciate in a striker. Yeah. You know, I mean, and those are the types of things that are going to happen. You expect an officiating crew to be bigger than that. You expect them to not buy into the antics on either side. And there were antics on both sides in this game, right? But you expect them to not have any of that and to adjudicate down the line. And it just, it felt a bit all over the map in this game.
Yeah, it was not the best look. And I do hope, is that going to be on Under Review?
Yeah. I mean, Phil mentioned it, like either during Goals and Boards or at least during the off the camera Goals and Board stuff. So make sure you tune in to the most controversial show, because I'm very curious to hear why Ryan gave Fabian the blue card and catch what he saw.
Well, and if he does say he gave him the blue card because of, the reasons you said, like, trying to get control of the game, like that was kind of like his way of saying, all right, no, we're serious here. How do you not give Tavoy a blue card for that? That was an obvious flop. There was absolutely no pressure whatsoever behind anything with his foot. Even if he just didn't like his foot was being placed that high, there was nothing about that would have caused him to fall. That is a flop. I'm sorry. That's a blue card. You send them both to the bin and you teach them both a lesson at that point.
I think Tavoy is never too tough and too talented a player to utilize the dark arts like that. I don't think that's a style that suits him. Tough kid from Jamaica. There's no reason for him to utilize like a little ticky-tack thing like that. Obviously, our penalty kill has been what it has been. It didn't necessarily reflect upon anything, but Tavoy, I love you, buddy. You're a hell of a player, but you don't need the dark arts to prove any points. You're far too talented. Play your game.
So, anyways, When is that show on? When's under review? Friday. So make sure you tune into that. It's going to be a real interesting one, no doubt. I can't wait to see how they explain some of these calls. Now, let's move on from these games because they always say the windshield is bigger than the rear view for a reason, because we're always looking forward. We don't need to look back anymore. These games have happened. They are what they are. We can't change them. So
it's a good point. Sometimes you're the bug, sometimes you're the windshield. I'm looking forward to the days when the strikers are the windshield.
So anyways, moving on, we have got a home game coming up after the holidays. We're all going to celebrate the holidays however we see fit, whether you have to work, probably you, probably me, probably not you. Just kidding. It was a joke. Just kidding. I know, right? And then we are all going to come together after the holiday season on December 28th back at Toyota Arena to take on the Taco Masters, my favorite nickname in this league. Welcoming back, of course, Nick Pereira. And congratulations to Juice Cox and his wife, Allie, on their new addition to their family. They're going to be welcoming. They announced they were having a baby. And it's going to be very exciting to see Tacoma back. Do you guys have any thoughts on Tacoma?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Chris again. I love Chris Toth. I really do. And I love hanging out with Nick Pereira, Mike Ramos. Those guys are all really darn cool. The thing that makes me nervous about playing a team like Tacoma, especially considering how we're just trying to figure out our chemistry, is it's going to be dangerous to go up against a team that has a ton of chemistry. What do we have there? Pereira. Okay, cool. Oh, wow. I didn't realize you had them both. I was going to flash this dope jersey that I bought. It was Hall's jersey from back a few years ago. I bought it from the Acesso Showwear Center. The reason why I'm showing this jersey to y'all is because this is dope. I'm not a hater, but I hate the collars on the Tacoma Stars jersey.
I'm sorry.
I really do.
I do too. I do not like Tacoma Stars collared shirts. I don't like collared shirts in general, unless, I don't know, you're trying to sell me a car or something. But
this was also a dope jersey, by the way, that Tacoma put up.
Yes.
I'm showing this because they have created some phenomenal jerseys in the past. The collared one, I love the Argyle, but the collar, ugh.
Yeah, not a fan, but we will be seeing them. They will be gracing us with their presence again on December 28th at Toyota Arena. Not sure of the time. It's probably a 7:30 game, I would assume.
I think, it's Thursday. I don't know. I haven't checked that far. I've got to get through 3 broadcasts this week.
Hold on.
Is it a weekday? What day is it? We don't know.
Nobody knows. Between Thanksgiving and New Year's, no one knows what's happening. We're all filled with cheese and no one cares.
I mean, look, the Tacoma Stars are a team, from Lane and Nick on down, that have been nothing but gracious, kind, welcoming, friendly, class, top to bottom with us specifically. And despite the fact that our teams are rivals, when these players come to town, it's friends that are coming to town. We're excited.
You could say the same thing about San Diego, Doc. Be honest.
Of course, we get along great with most of the San Diego players and team and everybody, right? But
I got no respect for all of them.
Oh, when it comes to respect, I have nothing but respect for anyone who puts on a jersey and goes out and plays in this league. Anyone involved in MASL, top to bottom, my hat is off to you. What y'all do week in and week out is amazing, right? Obviously, we sit here gabbing at our relative screens and cameras about it. Like, thank you all for making this amazing product that we get to love and enjoy. And God bless the MASL and may it live forever. Hoorah. Tacoma's coming to town. It's gonna be fun. Where was I going with this?
Talking or Elijah Craig?
The Elijah Craig's gone. Sorry. So maybe that is the Elijah Craig that has taken over at this point. But Tacoma Stars are going to be a tough matchup. I feel like they're very evenly stacked with Empire. I feel like what Empire has in young and upcoming and developing talent, Tacoma has in proven MASL assets. They're a very well drilled team. They execute the fundamentals incredibly well. And so, it's going to be a fun matchup. I'm excited about this.
They bring back Alessandro Canali, who had played a lot of beach soccer with Chris Toth and Nick Pereira. So Canali, in the couple games that he's played in, 3 goals, 2 assists, 5 points. But Nick Pereira, from an MVP season, picking up right where he left off. 3 games. The man's got 5 goals and 4 assists for 9. I repeat, 9 points. I mean, this guy just gets better and better and better. It's stupid.
Gonna be a back-to-back MVP again already.
I mean, he's
Woo!
if he had the number of games that Kansas City had, he probably would have had much higher statistics. But Nick Pereira, a dominant force. They've got one of the best keepers in the game, and that of Chris Toth. One of the most exciting players, and that obviously of Mike Ramos. But more importantly, like I said earlier, a team that has chemistry together. A team that has players that can finish each other's sentences, like you alluded to after we went out to dinner with the boys after the USA-Mexico game. That's something that our boys are going to have to overcome, because nonverbal communication and just simple eyelids and head movements, Tacoma's going to be off to the races. Our boys aren't going to know what the heck is coming. So I hope to God that they are prepared. They're still the younger, faster, more endurance team, but they're going up against a veteran team that is intelligent and knows how to win when they compete together.
All right, and here's really, I think, the first opportunity for coaching to get a grasp on this team. When we're talking about an Empire Strikers team that's really come together this month, I mean, these early games have been a lot of feeling and figuring it out, right? And we've seen some structural, some fundamental flaws in this team so far. They will figure those out. If laymen like us can see it, I guarantee you this coaching staff and this team has already figured it out and is already working on it, right? So this is going to be a real litmus test as far as how much the Strikers are able to move the needle on some of these little areas. We've already seen that they have the superstar power to be able to put goals in the back of the net. The 3.8 goals per game average has got to increase, right? And when you're up against a Stars team that's scoring almost 7 goals a game, the defense has got to improve as well too. We know the pieces are here. We know all the parts are there to make it work. Now let's give them a week off and a holiday off to be with their families, refresh, reset, come back ready to go, learn, grow, and improve.
The best thing that I think that we have going for ourselves is that there really is no pressure that these players have. And what I mean by that is we're not expected to win games. We're not expected to make playoffs. So bearing that in mind, there is no pressure to compete. There was far more pressure the year after we went to the finals in 2021 when we came out there and said #championship bound. That was pressure. There was a bullseye. There was a target on our back. Everybody now expects to compete and beat the Empire Strikers. And that's where we could actually catch fools sleeping, by coming out there and punching them hard in the face, but maintaining that. It's one thing to get a hit on a heavyweight prize fighter. It's another thing to get them repeatedly in and get that TKO. This team is only going to get better. These young men have to believe that. Paul Wright has to believe that. Everybody within this organization has to believe that. We're not a championship-bound team. I'm sorry. I'm going to say it right now. This is not a team built to win the Ron Newman Cup final, but it is a team built to compete, and I think that we are going to turn things around and shock the naysayers by slipping into the playoffs. We are literally in the same exact position that we were last year. We've played 5 games, we've lost 4, and we've won 1. Literally the same as last year, folks. Literally the same. So keep sleeping on Empire. I believe we're going to make the playoffs. And to the players on our team listening to this podcast, I hope to hell you believe the same thing.
Amen.
All right, guys. Well, we have rambled on for almost an hour and 20 minutes. So thank you to you all who were in the chat hanging out with us and listening right along. And for everyone else, thank you for listening. Do you guys have any final thoughts before we go, or was that pretty much how you wanted to end it?
Yes.
Anything else? Okay.
A very, very happy holidays to the entire Empire Strikers and MASL Nation. Whatever you celebrate, may you be with your family and the ones you love, and may you celebrate the time you get to spend with them. And hopefully it ends this year on a positive note for you.
I agree with Elijah Aguirre. This team will get the chemistry together. We will make it. I echo the words of Jonathan Reimer, and I love you all.
Speaking of Elijah.
Elijah to Elijah. Our New Year's resolution to have a show at a consistent time. Thank you so much to everybody that came on at this weird hour. I didn't think anybody would pop in. I didn't even think anybody knew. So thank you very much for joining us. And you get the final word, Madam Hostess.
My final word is for anybody out there who drinks wine and ends up sick at some point. Do not drink wine with Hall's cough drops, because that was awful. I regret everything, and I need to go brush my teeth now. So, on that note, everybody, we will see you again very shortly. And again, thanks for hanging out with y'all. Anybody?
Bye-bye.
Bye.